people always have this misconception that radio is so boring, and that, I can't tell you how many times I've heard like, well, radio's dead, and not only do I not believe that, but I also believe that it can still be a tool for people to go and discover new music.
All right. Hi, Matt. Welcome to the Meetup spot.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah. Seriously, though, I love your studio. Do you sometimes make your songs here, or do your show at home, something like that?
I spend hours and hours. So I work from home in terms of my day job, as well. The space behind me here is my live rehearsal room for the band, and then in front of me is my studio setup. So basically, where I record music, I host my radio show, and I also do something that's called described video. So for people that are visually impaired, I watch hours of television and I describe the things that I'm seeing on the screen. So I watch a lot of TV. I'm paid to watch some pretty awful television.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Oh, well, sure. But I see you are living the life, eh?
It's a great life that I live, I think. My wife and I have both worked from home for a very long time.
Oh.
We have two beautiful kids. I live on 5 acres of farmland basically here. So
Mm,
yeah, we have three cats and a dog and some chickens. And yeah, I don't have too much to complain about. That's for sure.
I see. All right, here we go. Let's start. So, Matt, tell me about yourself and your growing up story.
So you want my my origin story?
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm from a city called Oshawa, Ontario, um, which is ironic because my wife is from there as well. And growing up, I always knew that I didn't want to have, a quote unquote office job. I knew that I always wanted to do something creative, certainly something to do with music. And when I finished high school, I basically got into one college program that was about multimedia. So this is going back, whew, it's going back probably, how old am I now? Yeah, so this is probably almost 30 years ago when I
Oh,
first when I first went to college, when everybody wanted a website back in the day. So at the time, a lot of people were doing things that were called flash animations and website intros and things like that. So, basically I wanted to get into an industry where I knew that I would be able to combine my love for design with technology. And while I was at that school, right across the hall from the program that I was taking was a recording program for music recording, which was way cooler to me than what I was doing in the program. So I would be spending a lot of time kind of watching some of the producers and some of the engineering students do music. And so I graduated from my program and I jobbed out from that program and worked in, the graphic design industry for about a year, and then decided that I didn't want to do that anymore because it was a lot of blue collar meetings and sitting in front of a computer screen and, essentially not being as creative as I wanted to be. So I decided I was going to go back to school, and I backpacked with, a friend and my guitar for, a few months, and got back and decided that I was going to try to get into radio. I thought that that would be a healthy way to combine my love of music and talking about music and trying to, dip my toe into the industry a little bit. And when I got home, I got into a great program at Humber College, a radio broadcasting program. And it was only about 8 months. And then I found a job in my hometown. So I got to literally leave one program. And before I knew it, I was on the air in my hometown, Oshawa. And now the job that the radio station that I work for now is basically the guy that gave me my first real full-time job in radio. I'm back working for him again now. Only The only difference is now I get to do it from home, from my home studio, instead of having to go into the radio station to do the job. So yeah.
Mm. Ah, that's awesome. So you went music first before radio?
I think music has kind of always just been there while while I was doing radio, really. I've more than recently, in the past 5 or 10 years, really started to take my music career much more serious, or at least being, how do I say, taken a little bit more seriously, I suppose, as a songwriter. Before it was something that was more or less of a hobby, and now, yeah, I think that I'm just taking my craft a little bit more seriously. Radio kind of comes along for the ride because I now host an independent music program where I get to play up and coming acts and bands that aren't signed, bands that are kind of in the same boat that I'm in, trying just to cut their teeth and really try to take this thing a little bit more seriously. But music has always been my number one passion. When I was a kid, my parents were always taking us to concerts. It was more important for my dad to put on a record than to watch TV or watch a movie. My dad played piano. Um, my dad was actually just in my band for, a little while up until the last couple of years. So he's kind of been on this ride with me after being able to, help to usher music into my life. It's been one thing that I've kind of taken pride in, the fact that it came full circle and that I got to, introduce my dad on a stage full of people. And yeah, I think music was definitely there before radio, but the two worlds have certainly collided in the best way.
Mm, that's awesome. And it's great that you're doing a program like that.
Well, it's great that they've given me the, kind of the keys to the city to be able to do this thing. When I got back on the air, because I took probably 5 years off of doing radio. And when I got back and when I got the call from my program director, essentially the owner of the station now, the station that I work for, which was a newly acquired radio station. But, when he came to talk to me about it, I said, I think a great idea, especially in this market, would be for us to have an hour a week where we can kind of play up and coming artists and talent, because I think that's what's lacking, is that people always have this misconception that radio is so boring, and that, I can't tell you how many times I've heard like, well, radio's dead. And not only do I not believe that, but I also believe that it can still be a tool for people to go and discover new music, because that's what I used to listen to way back in the day. I used to love programs where not only I would hear unsigned or independent up and coming artists, but where I could tune in and hear something different, as opposed to hearing the same 5 or 10 songs in a row. That is certainly something that does happen in a more of a pop radio format. But the nice thing about, as well, like on top of what I'm doing now, this station Y91.9 out of Lindsay, Ontario, their slogan is the greatest hits of all time. And the nice thing about that is that it doesn't matter what the era is generally. If it was a hit, they're going to play it. So we get to play everything from, Smokey Robinson to the Beach Boys to Tom Petty to Green Day to MC Hammer. Like, the genre is very, how do I say, it's just not important. It's just, if it's a great song, that they play it. So not only do I get to be a part of a program where I get to hear all these wonderful artists that I've grown up with, that we all have great stories about hearing those songs for the first time. But then on Sundays at 6 o'clock, the new noise is a time that you can tune in and hear something that I guarantee you've never heard before.
Mm, great. Okay. And Matt, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Well, I think that certainly beckons back to the time where I remember saying I'd never want to work again.
Oh,
Like, so I think that whatever we do, I'm 46 years old now, and I think that although there are some days that are better than others, I still feel very strongly about the fact that what I do for work doesn't really feel like work. And I think that that was a conscious decision that I made a very long time ago, was that, if I'm gonna be out there struggling every day and trying to make ends meet and pay a mortgage and a rent and all these things, like we spend more than half our life working. So I'm not sure what your full-time gig is, but I know that if you're a creative mind, how awful it would be if you had to go and work and dig ditches or put parts on cars all day and hate what you're doing when you're gone, right? I mean, I always tell my kids, real life begins when you get home from school. And what I wanted to always reinforce is that you can have a career that you don't hate. It is possible to, if you like food, you could be a chef. There's so much creative stuff that you can do in the kitchen. If you love film, you know, e- any industry, there's always a one avenue there that you can be creative, and that was something that was very important. So, a long-winded answer to a short question is creativity. I just knew that no matter what I did for a living, I knew that creativity had to be at the forefront of that. And I'm pretty happy to say that even in talking, even in doing what I do for, 8 hours a day, I still have to be really creative. And even in my approach of how I describe television, how I watch what I do, I still host a radio show every day, and there's always something happening in the world. There's always a different way that you can present that song or be in someone's life during the day, even in the conversation that we're having right now, there's still a creative element to that. And I'm pretty happy and lucky that I get to be creative in everything that I do.
That's nice. And if you're curious, I don't have any full-time gig right now. Yeah, this
So, okay, so are you looking for a full-time gig right now?
I'm in Alberta. I wish, but I'm in Alberta, so
Right.
and not
Whereabouts in
possible.
Alberta are you?
Edmonton.
Okay, and are you so now I'm going to turn the tables and interview you for a
Oh
second.
no.
So, yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me why and how did this podcast start?
Oh boy, this was originally a toast. This was originally a project in my Toastmasters club, which the first episode is gonna be was posted like a year ago. It's this podcast is gonna be a year old on June 20th, the day of
Congratulations.
I'm recording.
That's amazing. Congratulations. I've done podcasts before. I've hosted them as well.
Oh,
There,
what?
so it's not easy, especially like in the video format with what you're doing right now. It's to have the same thing going for a year. How many episodes have you done?
So yeah, so far so good. I think you are yeah. I think this is episode 43.
Oh, that is something to be really celebrated. Good for
Exactly. I
you.
know.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I'm really proud of you because, just keep doing it, man. You know how easy it is just to pack up if do you have sponsorship for this thing yet? Have you thought about
No,
that?
not yet. Not yet.
So yeah, I mean that's another avenue for you to be able to gain revenue. And I would hope that this seems like a consulting thing that I should be talking to you about, but there are ways to monetize this. And I think that especially because every guest that you have on is probably in a different industry, if I'm not mistaken, right? You're
That's
not
true.
always in it.
Yeah.
So, a great way to not only build your numbers off of each thing like this is that number one, ask your guests if they're okay to share the episode when it's ready to go out, right? So, as well, depending on who you have on as a guest within each industry, I'm sure that there is somebody that might be connected to someone that might be interested in sponsoring a podcast like this.
Oh.
And so, depending on your reach and how you get people to tune in, view, listen every week, there's probably some pretty good research that you can do out there to see what your numbers look like, who's listening or watching, and where from. And there's no shame in being able to go out there and try to ask other people, would this be something that you're willing to come on board and not only share through their social media, but maybe pay you a couple of bucks to be a sponsor. So you could say, when you do your edit and when you come back on to do your program every time, hey, welcome to the show. This show is brought to you by Randy's Butcher Shop, or maybe tonight, because we're talking about radio, you could approach. Do you guys have Long and McQuaid in Alberta? Do you know what that
I
is?
think. Well, I think. think I've never been to a Long and McQuaid, but so far,
Like a
no.
a
But I think,
musical, a music store in your neighborhood, or in your city, you know, microphones and things like that. Headphone manufacturers, like, you can think outside the box and monetize and be able to try to make a little bit of money off this thing you do. And I'm sure that you do it as a labor of love, which is great. I'm sure you do it because you like it, but there's also ways that you can make a little bit of money off this thing. And I hope that you do.
oh,
Yeah,
okay. I gotta say, I might look into that. Thank you, man.
no
All right.
problem. I won't even take a cut.
Oh, wow. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the help, man. All right.
Absolutely.
So back to this. What got you interested in broadcasting at first?
At first, it was probably, well, I was doing some traveling at the time, which is ironic because I left, Toronto to go out west. I've been to Edmonton before, but I ended up in Victoria. And while I was traveling out that way, my brother still lives out there. Actually, my brother's in Victoria right now. But and they've lived in Calgary and Airdrie, and we've spent quite a bit of time out that way. But I think while I was traveling, keeping in mind that this was nearly 30 years ago, 25 years ago, that there wasn't things like podcasts at the time. There wasn't digital media the way there is now. So there was a lot of listening to the radio. You either had like a binder full, yeah, I'm sure you know what a CD is. You know what a
Hmm?
CD is?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I grew up with CDs.
Okay, so yeah, like binders full of like CDs for road trips, or you would turn on the radio. And especially while you're traveling, you want to know what's going on not only through the local stations weather-wise, but if you're rolling through Lethbridge or Wawa or any of these places that we would be traveling through, you kind of want to know what the scene is like there. What are they doing? What's happening there? So I got listening to radio while I was traveling a lot, and if I'm honest, thinking, wow, this guy's awful, or wow, these DJs are really boring. And I got my gears turning. Like, if I was to go back to school, what would I do? And I was thinking, yeah, you know what? Like, I kind of like to talk about music, and I love sharing in that moment with people where we can each have the love of the same band or song, but we probably each have a different memory or a different story that we can share about it. And I've always loved so many different genres of music that I think that I'd always been flipping through different radio stations and trying to find whatever mood I was in, whether it be, rock and roll, or I'm a big hip hop fan as well. So I would, always want to find out what the local scene was, who's doing what. So while I was traveling, I was just listening to a lot of radio and thought, heaven forbid I could be on the radio one day. And, lo and behold, I got hired in my own hometown. So, yeah, I think just traveling and listening to what other people were doing in terms of radio really kind of lit that inside me, and yeah, I'm still doing it now.
Hmm. So hometown in Oshawa. So I guess that's 94.9 The Rock, right?
It was, in fact, when I first got hired, that station was a station called Magic at 94.9,
Mm.
and what happened was I got hired on the premise knowing that, like, I was hired by one company saying, listen, like, we're going to take you on here part time, but you need to know that come September, we're all out of a job because we've been bought. So the guy, basically what happened was, so I was Matt Holtby on Magic at 94.9. And I remember my very last on air shift there. We have this thing in the radio station that's called the Bat Phone. Okay, so if you're familiar with Batman,
Hmm.
anytime the Bat Phone rang, Bruce Wayne would know it was Commissioner Gordon. Okay, like, meaning you got to answer that. Like, when the Bat Phone rings, it's some important stuff, so you got to pick up that call. So the Bat Phone rang, I answered, and lo and behold, it's hey, it's I can still hear him. Matt, it's Steve Cassay, who is my program director.
Ooh.
And he introduced himself and said, listen, I'm the guy who's taken over that station. I think I hear something here. I would like to sit down and meet. And, I was really like, it was one of those 11th hour Hail Mary conversations where I was like, okay. Like I couldn't believe my ears because I thought I was out of a job. Like I was ready to be looking for a job. But, after that, he basically met me at, a restaurant up the street and, said, listen, this is the format. We're switching from what this was. And I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on rock and roll? And, I lit up like a Christmas tree because that's the stuff that I was raised on. Like I was saying earlier, my dad would put on Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon and turn the lights down and put on a strobe light, and like and make us listen to Supertramp records and Chicago and Pink Floyd and like just great stuff. So I was really excited, especially he's telling me that the new station was new rock meets classic rock, but it was uh 94.9 The Rock, playing the new rock you need and killer classics. Well, it was the tagline of the station. So I was over the moon, and he said, "Listen, we want to hire you. We want to bring you on full time, but we have to change your name." And so I was thinking, well, I mean, I'm from here. People already know who I am. And he was like, "Yeah, well, you've already worked for the same frequency under Matt Holtby. So we're going to change your name to Matt Diamond." So their thing was they wanted me to be the diamond on the rock. And I thought it was so ridiculous that I was like, yeah, okay, let's go, and it was a full-time job in radio at the time. So when they switched, basically, it was like I remember that night listening in my room, like they flipped the switch at midnight and played The Spirit of Radio by Rush. And it was like this new chapter in my life kind of took over. And I think that you even know, Vanessa Murphy, who does
Yeah.
more, Vanessa Murphy, who does mornings, she was on that original squad. She was hired on that original team for 94.9 The Rock. And, for me to come back full circle, you know, years and years and years later, and for Vanessa and I to both be working for the same guy that hired us both back in Oshawa 20 plus years ago is a real gift. It's a real special thing. And she and I are both at completely different parts in our life now. We're both, we have families of our own, and the story, continues to evolve. And I'll never forget, Steve, who hired me, is still a very close friend of mine. He knows my family. He's met my kids. He supports my music. You know, you're working for a great guy when you don't have to have conversations with him all the time, meaning he's trusted in me to not only do what I'm doing for the radio station, but the the ideas and the things that I have in terms of the new noise and the new music program and all these other things that I'm doing. I'm not a kid anymore. It's a pretty special time to be able to work with the people that gave me my start in this whole thing. Yeah.
That is really mind blowing to hear, really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I believe the irony of this. You mentioned the spirit of the spirit of radio. The irony was that around that time, Magic at 94.9 was owned by Chorus, but which also owned the Edge. We had Alan Cross. I had Alan Cross a few months ago,
Yeah.
and so
Even to add to the, to the serendipity of that, when I left The Rock in Oshawa, I went to work for a station in Peterborough, Ontario called The Wolf, 101.5 The
ooh,
Wolf. And they're a Chorus owned station as well.
yeah.
And so, you know, two totally different companies, two totally different ways of doing business, not better or for worse, but very different. And the funny thing is that Durham Radio, where I'm working now, is a privately owned company, whereas Chorus is obviously this massive media company. They own TV. They're a very major player in North American media. And when I left The Wolf, I was thinking that that's my time done. I'll probably never work for a great big company like Chorus. And now doing Describe Video, I'm doing it for Chorus again. So not only am I working for the television side of Chorus, but I'm back working on the Durham radio side on radio, which is really cool. So I kind of get to I'm literally working for both companies, and there's no competition at all. It's completely two different factions and portions of my life that are completely separated by two pretty awesome media companies that I'm working for, you know.
Mm, I see. And I believe it's great. It's great that you got, yeah, that you got a good person in Steve.
Mm.
And I believe Steve knows the market well.
Oh, Steve is Steve not only knows the market, but Steve knows, I mean, even just like, you know, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, you know, there's a job open for you know, a record label, and I wanted to inquire about it, and like Steve was like, "Yeah, I'll make some calls." You know, Steve is such a player, not only in the radio game but in music in general. You know, Steve was a member of a band way back in the day called Lee Aaron, and you know, he plays keyboard. Like in this room, before I came back to even work with Steve, Steve and his son and my dad and I were in this studio jamming together, you know, just as everybody's coming out of COVID, you know, and everyone was, you know, allowed to get together again. But I had always tried to keep in touch with him even when I wasn't working for him. So when you say he's a player, like not only is he a guy that I entrust with my career, but he is so knowledgeable on music, and he is just, you know, he's driven by the same things I am. His son is an artist. His son is a musician. Steve plays bass. Steve plays beautiful piano. He's got that thing, you know, that I love, that is just, we're all driven by this creative thing. And whatever that is, we are certainly cut from the same cloth. So where it comes to me, you know, working for a guy like that, you know, I get a little emotional because I almost look to him not only as like a father figure to me in terms of my career, but like a brother as well. And now, especially that I'm in my later 40s now, you know, he's kind of watched me. Like Steve's the guy. I went to Steve to ask for some money so I could buy an engagement ring for my wife. You
Uh,
know, and like when I say he give me money, like he gave me a, he made it work. Like he gave me a loan, you know, out of my paychecks basically. So because he knew I was going to ask my wife to marry me, and like my wife is upstairs making dinner for my two kids who are 9 and 12 now, you know, like, so it's a very family oriented industry. Pardon me, not even. It's a very family run business, Durham Radio. And it's not just about paychecks. It's not just about, you know, content in this world that we live in that is all just so driven by content and social media. Like there is such a wonderful family hands-on aspect to this company that I am so proud to be a part of.
that's great. That's great. And okay. Um, okay, I think we spoke too much about radio. Okay, what also got you interested in making music? Or you probably mentioned like that, but do you still want to answer it?
Well, you know, I after listening to so much music, it was something that I always knew that I was capable of. Well, everybody else was either um, you know, I don't do math, I don't do geography or science well, but what I always excelled at was English. And I was always kind of a wordsmith. I was always a storyteller. And even in the music that I write now, a very small portion or part of the songs that I write are autobiographical. I write a lot of stories about the things that I see around me and about friends and family and, you know, love and loss. And, you know, I think the thing that I was always drawn to was just writing stories and songs. And I'm not a very accomplished guitar player, but I can write a melody and I can write a song and a hook. And I really take pride in the fact that I have no training. You know, everything that I've done has been organic. And the fact that I've got melody in my mind, you know, and then I can kind of sit down and write a song pretty effortlessly. Not to say that they're great, but it was something that came to me really early when I was very young. And like I said, now at the age that I'm at, and I'm really just starting to try to take it a little bit more seriously now, I'm getting a little bit of airplay of my own music, and, you know, just trying to stay relevant is an adventure in itself, really. But yeah, my love of music is something that was instilled in me since a very young age. I can remember being in grade one playing a tennis racket and lip syncing Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. It was just something that I always knew I wanted to do.
I see. Um, how do you balance out being both the one making the music and the one playing the music?
I mean, that's a good question. I think because I am um, someone who's trying to build a music career for himself, and then being able to try to put other people in the spotlight with the independent radio program that I do. It's easy. It's like saying, I love ice cream so much that I get to make it. You know, it's like being a chef who also loves French cuisine. So the two worlds just they come together so effortlessly, you know, being able to talk about other bands that are on tour and or knowing what the struggle is like. Like even just today on Facebook, I posted, you know, this thing that nobody knows the struggles about what an artist goes through more than another artist. And ways that we can help each other out is by simply, you know, posting about other people's work and their art and their music. And you know, even the way that things are now, you know, we're in a different day than we were even 5 years ago, the way that music was, you know, distributed and the way that it's shared and treated and, you know, even released, right? You know, even just through digital streams and Spotify, that is an always changing environment and it's always evolving. So even the way that I'm doing radio now, you know, back in the day, we weren't really, they didn't even really want you to talk about anything other than, you know, current affairs or current things or the way like you would never back in the day, never tell people to go and watch television. You know, you would never say, you know, something that is going to take them away from radio. And the world is just so different now that you would be so naive to not talk about something that you saw on YouTube or something that you read on Instagram. You know, we all do it. We all consume media the same. Some of us might spend a little time, you know, in one avenue than the other. But, you know, the way that an artist has had to pivot in terms of like, you know, it's funny. I said this to someone the other day. It's like, I love the fact that radio is something that is immediate and it's not something that you go and download. It's not something that is, although you can stream it on your device, I think of it as such a romantic vehicle to sit down and think that someone has to sit down at 6 o'clock on Sunday to tune into that particular program, as opposed to, or you can go stream it online. You know, I'll still go and listen to podcasts all the time. I still think that that's very important. But this particular medium is something that is so specific and it really beckons back to the day where you had to go and watch a particular program. Like I remember being a kid, you had to watch G.I. Joe at 4 o'clock or you missed it, right? You know, you had to sit down after school to watch a particular thing or it was gone. And I think there's something really kind of cool about that. It's kind of this hands-on, you know, I don't want to say it's a thing of the past, but everything is so available and at your fingertips now, even, you know, television, you know, like when you think about it, if you miss that movie being in theaters, you're not worried about it. You can stream it in a couple weeks, you know? So what I'm trying to really do is like try to put that philosophy kind of under glass and like say, no, like even today, you know, an artist that I played on the show last week was like, I missed it. Can you send it to me? And I'm like, no, like it's not on demand. You know, it's not to say that one day it won't be, or that one day I won't host another podcast that does this thing that I'm doing right now. But there's something really, for lack of a better term, like romantic about having to sit down and listen at that time in order to get the show. And as an artist, I think that that's something that doesn't happen often enough. And I'm always just trying to usher people in and tell people like, no, man, tune in at 6 o'clock. You're going to hear some stuff that you don't normally get to hear. And I think that that's, kind of a lost art. And it's certainly something as an artist, it's something that I think is kind of special.
Nice. And I guess that's it. I guess that's it for the questions. Are you ready for quick fire? Answer questions quickly in another 90 seconds.
You got it, buddy.
All right, here we go. One word to describe yourself.
Integrity.
Hmm. What is your best radio DJ tip?
Be yourself, 100%. Be yourself.
Nice. Best artist you love to listen to.
A band from Dayton, Ohio called Guided by Voices.
Hmm. One everyday item you can't live without.
That I can't, sorry, without?
That you can't live without.
Oh, sunglasses.
Oh, that's you look cool in them. I can imagine. Mantra in life.
um, Live, love, and laugh.
Best place in Warkworth for a good meal.
Okay, I'm gonna name drop my friend's cafe. It's called KOK, and it is a lovely it's a lovely spot to have a great cup of coffee and a sandwich and a great conversation.
Ah, best place in Ontario to go road tripping or travel.
I'm gonna say Wasaga Beach because my family has had a cottage there for 50 years, 40 years, and the cottage itself looks like it did back in the 70s. And my kids and I love to walk the beach there and go get an ice cream cone.
Ah, nice. All right, I guess that's it for quickfire. Do you want to let's are you ready for the Zoom screenshot?
Sure.
Here we go. Again, Matt, thank you for coming to the Meetup spot. And go.
I am honored and thank you very much. You run a fantastic show, and I will share this with everybody. You have my word.
Thank you. Any last thoughts or comments?
No, brother, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Matt. And anywhere we can reach you in social media?
Please find me at Matthew Holtby Music, and you can find me online at matthewholtbymusic.com. And tune in to the new noise each and every Sunday at 6 o'clock on Y919.fm.
That's nice. Again, Matt, thank you for coming to the Meetup spot.
Thank you, brother. Have yourself a great night. It was great to talk to you.
All right, dude.